crashes, defective products, dangerous drugs, injuries, and abuse. Across the state of Alabama, the attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis, Wright, are here to serve you. Your tough legal questions answered by our experts with host David Lamb and the attorneys of Hollis, Wright.
Hello and welcome into the attorneys. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. For the next half hour, we're going to discuss a topic of conversation. Divorce is basically what we're going to be dealing with today. So if you know someone maybe who's going through a divorce, needs some good legal advice, tonight is the night to get that. So give them a call. Tell them to tune in tonight. Going to be a really interesting conversation. A couple of reminders. The show's always better whenever you are involved. Number of ways to do that. All of that information at the bottom of your screen. The numbers to know, 844-529-8255 or local 205-324-3600. Also, do not forget the law firm of Hollis, Wright. They make available attorneys standing by live right now. So all throughout the program, opportunities for you to speak with an actual attorney from Hollis, Wright. Just give them a call. That free, confidential, and off-air conversation is yours for the taking. Leading our conversation, he's the managing partner of Hollis, Wright. Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you, too. You doing well?
Doing well, thank you.
How's everything? Things going your way?
They're kind of bending that way, as they say. Yes.
Well,
How about you?
That's very good, very good. We've had a great summer and kind of rolling back into the school season, all those good things. So it's been a lot of fun.
So I know you and the family were on vacation. So now it's a lot of folks are kind of taking a break like that, but now it's back to the grindstone.
Kind of back to the grind. That's right. You just got to kind of get ready and into the fall season, and so it'll be good for us. We've had a real nice summer, and I hope you have too.
I have as well.
Well,
Thank
good.
you.
All right. So tonight you kind of promoted it as we started here, Dave. We're going to be talking about a divorce. We're also going to address some issues of child custody. And kind of the tricks of the trade, what to do if you find yourself in this unfortunate circumstance and you need a lawyer to lead, guide, and direct you. And so as we often do, is we bring on an expert attorney, which we have here, Patrick Yates. First of all, welcome. Glad to have you here.
Good to see you.
Patrick does this type of work in addition to some other things here in Birmingham with his firm. And, you know, this really is an interesting area of the law, Patrick, in that there's a lot of times an emotion involved in these cases.
Absolutely.
And you have to kind of manage that in addition to the legal side of these things. So this is not just a calling. It's one that you really have to want to get involved in and work at.
That's correct. I mean, you have to have the right temperament, and you have to have a good understanding and have good communication with your clients, because you're dealing with both emotional issues and trying to manage those, as well as just the legal aspects of a divorce.
How did you get into this area of the law? Because I know you do some other stuff too, but this really is a specialty that you got to understand the tricks of the trade and the rules of the road, if you will, in order to be really good at it.
Sure. Well, when I graduated from law school back in 2010, my first 4 years was practicing child welfare and handling child abuse cases here in the city of Birmingham. And so I got accustomed to dealing with a lot with those very difficult and very emotional issues. And so I was in court about 5 days a week for about 3.5 to 4 years, handling child custody cases. After a while, I decided I want to take some of the experience I learned from that and apply it to the private sector, and I started my own practice. And it was a good transition for me to go from handling those child custody issues to handling divorce issues, where the child custody obviously a lot of times comes into play.
Yeah. Let's start from the beginning if we can, and talk just for a second about the difference between an uncontested and a contested divorce, kind of how that process works.
Sure. So an uncontested divorce is typically I'm getting a phone call from somebody who he or she has already spoken with their spouse, and they've already come to an agreement. They have an agreement, as to child custody. They have an agreement as to how they're going to divide their assets, who's going to be responsible for what debts, and things of that nature. And really, they just need an attorney who's going to formalize that agreement in terms that make sense and gets you through the court process without any sort of hiccups or issues, and can kind of fast track it without going through the prolonged litigation process, which is more of your contested cases where the parties don't have an agreement. They either don't have an agreement to get a divorce, or they don't have an agreement as to who's going to have custody of the kids or what that's going to look like, or there's disputes over money and things of that nature.
I'm assuming there are times when someone comes to you and says, we've got an uncontested divorce, everybody agrees on everything, and all of a sudden you find out they're not in such agreement.
That happens more often than not.
Tell us how you advise that, because I know at some point there become conflicts where you're representing two individuals and they may actually not be uncontested. How does that work?
Well, I generally encourage the parties to try to talk to each other if there are issues, especially when there's children involved. A lot of times, children see more than you know, and they don't want to be, they don't live in a vacuum.
Yeah.
And so if it's possible, if there are minor issues, although we may not have an agreement up front, if there's minor issues I think that an attorney can help address with that party, then we'll try to do that. Of course, if it's just simply unable to reach an agreement or bridge that gap, then we'll start the litigation process.
David, one of the things that often comes up in questions that we get is, am I going to have to go to court? Do I have to testify in this divorce if we have a form of an agreement? And there are some times when you're not going to have to go to court, but there are also some times when you do. And if you're going to have to go to court, for sure, you're going to want to have someone like Patrick without question involved.
Yeah, let's go ahead and step aside.
Okay.
All right, we'll take our first break of the evening. Whenever we get back, we'll jump back into this conversation and more of the divorce process. But as we head to break, a couple of reminders for you of how you can be a part of the conversation. That information at the bottom of your screen. Also, don't forget, Hollis Wright is all over social media. Great resource, educational, informational resource there. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, just about everywhere you are, the firm is there. So you can check them out there. Just search Hollis Wright and you'll be able to find that. Stay tuned. We've got more of the attorneys coming right up.
I'm Josh Wright with the law firm of Hollis Wright, a personal injury law firm. Thank you for watching The Attorneys. Now, we hope you, a friend, or a loved one never needs legal counsel for a case. But if you do, the goal of the show is simple. Provide answers and legal counsel when you need it the most. Your call to the show is free, so if you have questions specific to the show or related to other accident or injury-related topics, you can call, email, or text us. Or you can also follow us on Facebook or Twitter, or simply contact us by going to hollis-wright.com and click on the Contact Us link. We know your time is valuable, so thank you for spending it with us watching The Attorneys. It's common for a potential client to ask, there are many great firms out there. What separates Hollis Wright from other law firms? My response is generally to talk about the strengths of our law firm in handling cases throughout Alabama and the United States. That we've recovered through verdicts and settlements, hundreds of millions of dollars for our clients. That we have financial resources to hire any required expert and to take their case all the way to trial, even if it costs us hundreds of thousands of dollars to do so. That we settle cases for top dollar before trial is needed because the insurance companies and defendants know we have the ability to take a case all the way to trial. That we handle cases only on a contingency fee, which means we never ask the client to pay any costs of litigation whatsoever and only recover those costs in a fee if we win for the client. That we have a staff of more than 20 employees that help us litigate cases from start to finish. That we've had a television show on NBC 13 for 6 years that answers thousands of questions to citizens for free each year. But what I've learned in the last 20 years as a trial lawyer is that clients want more and deserve more than all those things. Those things are expected of each law firm they consider. So with that wisdom, what I tell clients now is simply this. We are a family-oriented practice at Hollis Wright, just like their own family. That we are a team-oriented group that engages in team-building exercises and team-building events because it helps our clients win cases. That we are dads and moms and brothers and sisters. That we are former Alabama trial lawyer presidents. That we return every single telephone call from every single client. That our bedside manner is second to none. So what really separates our firm from others? We're balanced and well-rounded, and as such, we relate to people not just as lawyers, but as compassionate human beings. Human beings that know what it's like to face a day in court. We are advocates, we are compassionate, we are tireless. We are, simply put, Hollis Wright.
Welcome back into The Attorneys. We appreciate you joining us each and every Sunday evening. Our topic of conversation all about divorce tonight. A couple of reminders. Don't forget the numbers that you need to know. Toll free 844-529-8255. Or locally, the number is 205-324-3600. And attorneys from Hollis Wright standing by live right now to speak with you. That free, confidential, all-fair conversation is yours. So take advantage of that opportunity. Josh?
You know, that comment you just made is one of the things I always like to highlight on the show, which is it is a free, off-air conversation. Right. We're not trying to put anybody on air. We're not trying to have you live on the show. Mm-hmm. But we have lawyers standing by, and people sometimes will challenge that. You know, are they really out there? Yeah. If you call, text, email, Facebook, Twitter tonight, you're going to get a response from a live lawyer. And so, you know, this is a great opportunity and a good format for people to be able to ask questions that may impact their everyday life in a confidential format with a lawyer for free. Yeah. And so that's part of the service we provide.
Yeah, and you guys are very accessible. There's plenty of ways to get in touch with you guys, so take advantage
Almost
of that opportunity.
Too accessible at
you
times.
Guys.
For example, for you, I mean, I keep getting hit up by you during the week, right? With my text. What the heck? What's going on?
I'm hounding you, Josh. Legal
that's
advice.
Yeah. All right, so let's get back to our topic, though. All right, so Patrick, let's talk just for a second about initiating the divorce process, because we do get a lot of questions where people are like, look, I just don't know if I can afford this, and I want out. I need to get a divorce, and they've gone through the counseling, it has not worked, and they want a divorce. How do they initiate that process? Like when they come to you, tell us how you advise someone.
Well, the first thing I want to know is, do you have an agreement? If you have an agreement, then we can do an uncontested divorce, and we will just draft up that paperwork. We'll schedule everyone in to sign, and then once everything is signed, the process shouldn't really take any longer than 30 to 45 days. If there isn't an agreement, then the first thing we're going to need to file is your complaint, and that complaint puts the opposing party on notice that you're asking for a divorce. This is the relief I'm asking for. I'm asking for certain assets to be awarded to that person. I'm asking for certain debts to be assigned, and I'm asking for custody of the kids and visitation and child support and things of that nature. And so the first thing you're going to have to do once that complaint is filed is you're going to have to serve that person, which is this basic due process, and that person needs to receive that document in hand so they know that this lawsuit has been initiated.
All right, so when that happens, you just kind of laid out a roadmap. Ultimately, you know, there's a divorce decree that really provides a roadmap for the couple moving forward on what their rights and responsibilities are. For example, you know, whether there's going to be a child support obligation, whether or not there's going to be a responsibility to pay certain debts, to sell homes, those types of things. That becomes a roadmap, doesn't it? The ultimate divorce decree?
Certainly, that's going to lay out. It's essentially a contract that's been turned into a court order, which means it's enforceable, and it creates those obligations. So it'll say, for instance, that mom, you're awarded primary or physical custody of the children. This is where the children are going to live, and this is when they're going to live there. And then dad, this is how often you're going to have the children, maybe on the weekends, maybe during the week. They'll also lay out the financial obligations of the parties, like who's responsible for paying monetary support for the support and maintenance of the children. And it's going to assign who gets the house, or if the house needs to be sold. And if the house does need to be sold, what's that going to look like?
Yeah. Do you find that oftentimes, even though there's a divorce decree in place, that because of changed financial circumstances, changed relationship circumstances, that there are people that want to go back and amend that decree?
Certainly. The most common thing that gets modified in any sort of divorce is child support, mainly because that's based on the incomes of the parties, and that can often change. Either someone might lose a job or someone might get a promotion. If that happens, then certainly that child support obligation under our laws can be modified to accommodate that change. Certain issues like property and division, the court doesn't have jurisdiction anymore after the court has entered its final decree to modify those things. But if there are compliance issues with respect to, let's say, payment of alimony and things like that, then it may be necessary, if one party is being non-compliant or not doing what they're supposed to do under the order, to file a new cause of action to enforce those provisions.
We love getting questions. The question we've got here has to do with locating a spouse. Apparently in this situation, someone's spouse has gone missing, can't locate them. What are they to do? What's the steps to take there?
Certainly. Oftentimes you have a marital couple that's separated and they just never really took the time to, or they didn't have the money at the time to get a divorce. And it may be many years since they last talked to each other or seen each other. They really have no idea where they live. In those circumstances, typically what I will do first is I have certain private investigators who can run an address check and try to locate where they are. And if I do find a good address, then I'm going to have a private process server, or I'm sending them by certified mail that complaint. But sometimes, even after taking those steps, we still can't find that person. We've searched 3 different addresses and none of them are good. In those circumstances, what a good attorney can do is file a motion with the court and ask the court permission to try to serve that person by publication, by saying to the court, listen, I've done my due diligence here. I've searched many different addresses. I'm unable to locate this person. And so what the court will do in those circumstances, if they have found that you've done your due diligence there, is that they will allow you to serve that person by publication, which means they're going to run in your local newspaper or periodical that this divorce is pending, and that'll run in the court or in that paper for about 30 days. And from the last day that ran, they have 30 days to file in their response. And if no response is filed, then that party can actually ask that court to go ahead and enter in that final judgment of divorce.
I know we're getting ready to go to break, but David, when we come back, I know there's someone sitting on their couch right now that's saying, I've done all these things, and I had a lawyer that got a consent decree put together or a divorce decree put together, and my ex-spouse is not complying with what they were supposed to. What do I now do? We get that question a lot, and I want Patrick to be able to talk about that because there are some options.
Okay, good. We'll pick up right there. Let's step aside. This is our final break of the evening, so a couple of reminders. If you want to place that call, the numbers, 844-529-8255 or locally 205-324-3600. You can pick up the phone and make that call. Also, those attorneys are standing by to speak with you. Again, one more segment remaining, so the clock is ticking. Go ahead and take advantage of that. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this.
I'm Josh Wright with the law firm of Hollis, Wright. As with any industry, it's important in the legal world to hire an attorney that is knowledgeable and has a track record of success. But with so many attorneys out there and so many different types of cases, how does someone decide the right lawyer to hire? In this week's Legal 4-in-1, we're answering the question, what should I consider in hiring an attorney? In-state versus out-of-state, big firm or little firm, recommendations from friends or family, the internet, the phone book, or TV. With so many choices and so much information, it can be an overwhelming task trying to make the right decision. To complicate things, choosing a lawyer is an important and sometimes life-affecting decision and should not be taken lightly. So how do you select an attorney? First, do your research. Look the firm up on the internet. Learn about the cases they handle and the results they get. Second, find out what clients are saying about the firm. Many websites provide client testimonials or have a star ranking system. Use those to your advantage. And finally, talk with a lawyer from their office and ask them questions. Questions about the volume of cases they handle. Do they return phone calls? Are you just a number or a client that gets the attention you deserve? Please remember, Your call, email, or text to the attorneys is free. All of us at Hollis Wright want to help answer your questions on real issues you face. Remember, a competent lawyer will respond to every question you send in. That's our pledge and promise to you. Thanks for watching The Attorneys right here on WVTM 13.
Welcome back into The Attorneys. This is our final segment, so the clock is ticking, just a few minutes remaining. If you want to take advantage of the opportunity to speak with attorneys standing by live from Hollis Wright, real quickly, that number once again, 844-529-8255, or locally 205-324-3600. Josh?
All right, so Patrick, I know that there is someone sitting on the couch right now that says, I did everything they're saying to do tonight, and I had a lawyer, and I got a divorce decree, and my ex-spouse is not complying with that divorce decree. What do I do? And so I'm going to pose that to you because I know you're going to answer a lot of questions here.
Sure. So, I mean, obviously, first meet with your attorney, let that attorney look at that agreement and make sure that they were actually ordered to do that thing. A lot of times people will misinterpret what's written in their divorce decree or what's written in their marital settlement agreement, and it may be ambiguous or may be unclear whether or not they've actually violated that provision. If that attorney says, listen, it looks to me like he's made some violations, or he's not making his child support payments on time, or he's behind, or he's sending you threatening text messages and engaging in behavior that's prohibited by that decree, then what that attorney can do is they can file a new cause of action. You'll hear the term petition for contempt or petition for rule nisi that gets filed. And what that is it's an action to enforce that decree. And in those circumstances, essentially the burden is on you to show that that he's violated that decree or he's violated that provision, and he did so without any sort of justification or any sort of cause. And if he's done that, then the court can, in those circumstances, take action to impose monetary sanctions on that person. Certainly, if you've incurred a lot of attorney's fees in filing that case, then that attorney will want to seek reimbursement for the attorney's fees you've incurred in bringing that cause of action. They might impose additional monetary sanctions. For instance, if it's a child support payment that they've missed, there's actually interest that accrues on child support payment that isn't paid on a timely basis. And so in those circumstances, the court will add that and tack that on to their pre-existing child support obligation. In child support cases, if you're even a month behind, the court can even incarcerate that person up to 5 days for each month that person is behind on, say, a child support payment.
This is one of the circumstances, we talk about this a lot when we do these types of shows, especially when we do the child support shows, where in a civil context, you can actually get jail time if you don't pay your child support. Mm-hmm. And that is a unique component to the civil law, because normally you don't see that under those circumstances. Normally you're seeing that in the criminal context.
Quite a few questions on the subject of custody and child support. Patrick, if you would, how is custody determined, and then also how is child support determined?
Sure, certainly. With respect to child custody, the court is really evaluating every case on its own merits based on what's in the best interest of the child or children. And so the court will first examine up front, well, are there any fitness issues? Oftentimes, parties are getting a divorce because of substance abuse or domestic violence, and issues where it comes into question whether or not that parent is actually fit at all to parent that child. For instance, if a person has committed domestic violence, there's actually a statute in Alabama that says it's presumed not to be in the best interest of the children for that person who's committed those acts of violence, for them to have any sort of joint custody or legal custody of the children. But absent those considerations, the court's really evaluating, well, who's traditionally served as the children's primary caregiver.
Okay.
Who's the one who's taking them back and forth to school? Who's taking them to their medical appointments? Right. Who goes to their parent-teacher conferences? Who takes them to baseball practice or football practice? Who's really served in that caregiver role? And who's likely to serve in that role in the future? Because certainly after the divorce happens, circumstances can change. A parent might have to work longer hours to make up for that lack of dual income and things of that nature.
Let me hit you with just a couple quick questions. One is, what happens if a spouse after divorce has to move out of state, but they have a custody decree in place, but they have to move out of state, for example, for work purposes? How does that work?
So in every divorce involving children, the Relocation Act by statute is going to be incorporated into that final order. And what that act says is that the person who's looking to move, say out of state because they got a new job or they want to move closer to family, they have to send that person a letter, the non-relocating parent, informing them that they intend to move. This is why we're moving. These are my proposed changes as it relates to visitation or custody and things like that. And if that person receives that letter, then they really have a short window of time, about 30 days, to file in an objection to court and ask for a restraining order preventing that person from moving.
We're just about out of time. So time is just flown. But Patrick, a quick final thought from you?
Certainly. The only thing I will say in the age of social media and things like that, be very careful what you place on Facebook or on Instagram or any of these social media platforms. Attorneys all the time, one of the first things I do is I get on Facebook or I get on Instagram and I'm looking at what kind of person is this?
Right.
What are they posting on there? And just be aware that that's going to show up in a courtroom someday.
Yeah, my parting comment, I think, David, is this, and Patrick has highlighted a lot tonight. There are a lot of very complicated issues that if you don't have a lawyer with you, you can run into a jam down the road. So if you're going to create this roadmap, you want to make sure that you've got a lawyer. Get a lawyer involved early. It may not be all that expensive to do that, so get a lawyer involved in these divorce issues and the custody issues.
Interesting conversation.
Great job, man.
Appreciate it.
Great job.
Appreciate you all being with us, and as always, we really do appreciate you joining us as well. We hope this has been beneficial to you. Thank you for your time as we wrap things up. That information you see on your screen, or you can just head to the website, just search Hollis Wright. You'll find all of our social media or the website as well. Thanks so much for the time. We'll look for you next time right here on The Attorneys.
Thanks for watching The Attorneys, sponsored by Hollis Wright.